Let's start off with a watch check because we like having fun and watches are fun. This is the discontinued Luminox Atacama variation. They use that name for some other styles, but this was this particular style. I reviewed it about 3.5 years ago. Many TNPrs bought it at that time. Congratulations. We got it for a great deal. It was like a $400 watch and we scored it for like, trying to remember, like 150, 175, something like that. Still cranking along. I just got it back from Last Suspect. He's had it for the last, well, 3 years. How many videos have you seen this in? Like the review and then none. He loves watches too, so he uses my watches and I'm totally cool with that. And we are in the warehouse. Welcome aboard. Glad you're here with me. Getting over a cold. I'm hoarse. I got the snots. I might have to cut, edit, whatever. Life goes on. I keep producing content. Thank you to you donors who keep me fired up. Well, all the TNPrs do. But of course, when you throw a couple bucks my way, I feel very obligated to press my mission forward. And my mission is to help you guys, keep you well grounded, keep you calm. That is one of my missions because we live in a crazy clown world, and to have you prepared for what's coming our way. Probably sooner rather than later is how I'm thinking now. This will be the POU discussion on my VBOK, vehicular or vehicle bug out kit. You may wonder why I waited so long to do this video. If you go back in my catalog, I have several kit videos. They seem to be pretty popular. Guys like them. I did the USK Urban Survival Kit, Day Hike Survival Kit, the DSK, Bug Out Kit series, multiple EDC updates, which does address some survival necessities, especially when you go into high probability for armed conflict. You can look those videos up. But lacking in that series of videos is a particular kit build designed for your car, your truck, maybe your motorcycle, but I might touch on that again somewhere in the series. But we're going to concentrate on four-wheel vehicles, conveyances. Why have I not done it to this point? I mean, here I am, what, 16, 17 years in TNP. The honest answer is, and I'm always honest with you guys, is because I personally did not feel the need to have one. I think a USK can flex to that POU pretty well. It's not ideal. There are some differences you'll see as a series goes along. I'm not sure how many parts it will be. I don't think it's going to be extensive. But I didn't really integrate one into my own vehicles. And I'm super honest in TNP. I don't like put forth something that I'm not using myself, whether it's a firearm, a knife, a watch, clothing, whatever. It's genuine. And so I didn't want to just do it to have it in, you know, the catalog, even though it would have gotten views, would have been popular. And I know there's a ton of guys that have done vehicle BOK stuff, whatever they call it, you know, get home kit. And I'm going to go with BOK. I was going to call it something else, but I already have a BOK, and it really describes what we're trying to do. The answer is because, again, I didn't feel a need to have it specifically. What's changed? Why am I doing it now? Now, you may think it's because guys have been calling for it, and by the way, they have, and they've been calling for a VBOK build, Nutnfancy style, for a long time. And I respect it. I love it. But I've got a lot of requests. I'm never at a shortage for ideas for videos. I have mounds and mounds of gear I'm always trying to review and get through. That alone is a full-time job. But what has changed in my way of thinking was an experience I had this summer. So I was on I-15 in Utah, and I was on a long trip. I was going to a certain location. It was a long trip, hundreds and hundreds of miles. And I'm on I-15, a very rural part of the state, and the interstate just shut down. and it was shut down for like 2 hours. I have never seen anything like this before. Now in that part of the state, it's only 2 lanes on each side, which I think is wholly inadequate for the amount of people that have unfortunately moved to Utah. It needs to be 4 lanes on each side. But nevertheless, it was shut down. Now I'm rounding up, it wasn't quite 2 hours, it's like 1 hour and 50 minutes. But that's a relatively long time for a modern person in a modern vehicle that's used to going where he wants to. And when that incident happened to me, as I often do, I project. I start thinking about it. And I started noticing people around me too. How are they handling it? And I felt a nervousness in Utah on that road. I just felt people were just kind of getting very irritable. They weren't chilling out. And there's nothing we could do about it. There's really no way to go around it. And so that roadway just shut down. So again, I project and I'm thinking, well, what if there was an earthquake, like a really huge earthquake in Utah, and it broke that roadway up and it's done? I'm talking like a crevasse opens up that's 40 feet across and it goes across both sides of the interstate. How are you going to traverse that? You're not. Not if you want to go that direction. You could turn around and maybe go back from where you came from, assuming that road's not broken up as well. What about just whatever happens without rule of law situation where the roadway shuts down? And I got thinking about 2020 also. And I remembered that the Pro-Tifa BLM forces were shutting down roads. And now when I'm filming this, it's pro-Palestinian people, which are basically the same people. They're always just looking for some reason to be pissed off. Shut roads down, engage in violence, hurt people, set things on fire. It's the same people. We saw what happened in 2020. Amazingly, I don't feel like law enforcement addressed it adequately. They should have thrown those people in prison, long prison sentences, definitely felony charges, every single one of them that stood on an interstate in California. I didn't really do specific follow-up to see what happened, but I suspect not much. That's because they are of the leftist, neo-Marxist ideology, and those folks can get away with a lot in this country. If you or I did that, and we were conservatives, we would no doubt be met with rapid force employment by law enforcement, and probably federal agencies would come out and respond as well. Hell, they'd probably call out the National Guard. There's a dichotomy of hypocrisy in play in our country. Obviously, you know this. So I thought about that. And I was thinking, and this is before the whole Israeli thing kicked off, I was like, is this going to happen again where our road system, and I'm on this road system, I'm going to be stuck? And lo and behold, I said to myself, how stupid would it be for me as Nutnfancy to be on that road and I'm unprepared? And I can't go any direction. I can't go east, west, north, or south. I'm stuck. And it was kind of embarrassing when I started thinking about it. I was like, why? And at the time, I didn't even have my USK with me. It was kind of embarrassing. I was like, gosh. I know I had a weapon with me for sure. I always have weapons with me. Had water with me. I had first aid kit. So I had basics with me, but not like a bug out kit that is tailored to my vehicle. Oh, and by the way, this is a POU video and my donors voted for this. I was going to just breeze through this philosophy. I asked them in a poll, do you guys want me to do multi-part or one part on the VBOK? And they resoundingly answered, do multi-parts. That's a good answer because it allows us to really examine what's going on in society, why a VBOK is necessary, and also I'm going to set some foundational things for the rest of the videos, like I always do. So we're grounded. We're not living in fantasy world, okay? What are we trying to do? I'm going to talk about that in this video. I'll harken back to it in other parts. But I was thinking, though, as I sat there, and Mrs. Nutnfancy was with me too, I was like, I really need to get a bug out kit and keep it in the vehicle. That's part one. Part two of this is, And I don't know how your state is, but I have seen in the state of Utah, not in Wyoming, I'm in Wyoming a lot, I don't see this in Wyoming, but in Utah, like in the Salt Lake Valley, Utah Valley, the amount of assholes on the road, enraged assholes, has gone like, I don't know, just nuclear. It's just a huge amount. There's huge amounts of road rage where actually weapons are being employed. People are like shooting at each other. And I'm not the end-all expert of how this transpires, what happens, but I have a good idea. I think it's basically dude is driving. Someone is extremely rude to him, cuts him off, almost hits his car. He flips the guy off, deservedly so. The guy who gets flipped off, who was the offender, decides he's not at fault at all and he's really going to get even with this guy. So he pulls aside next to this guy and starts firing a pistol trying to kill him. You might think I'm exaggerating here. I'm not. This has actually happened a lot in Utah, of all places. Road rage is on the up. People's fuses are very short. And here's the thing, and this is what I want you to understand. This is in rule of law. So this is when you have emergency services available, police services, medical services, and these morons are still engaging in this deadly behavior. I did a video years ago talking about how to handle road rage. You can look that up. I don't know if I'll put it in the description or not. And it basically entails of defusing, avoiding, if at all possible, going to a police station, if at all possible, and have that guy follow you into a police station. But I think things in society are a lot worse than they were when I filmed that. I don't think you would even have time now. And because of where we are as a society, I think people are spring-loaded to shoot you in some situations. Now, I'm not saying all people. I'm saying most people are great. They're awesome. They're just like you and I. They're just normal folks just doing what they do. They're not looking for conflict. They just want to go where they're going, home, work, see relatives, friends. But there is an element out there that is living on the edge right now. Right now. And when I say living on the edge, they are that far away from pulling out a gun and using it on you. Probably through no fault of your own. That's why I started thinking about vehicular bug-out kits or vehicle bug-out kits. Excuse me. Because society it's so bad out there. This republic is dead. It's on the vine, just dying. Things are bad. I'm not going to go into it. I'm posting right now on YouTube, Tears of Tyranny Part 2. Go watch that. I go through a number of things which I think you will agree with, and I'm just reading donor comments like from Patreon, and those guys are awesome. I'm just reading their comments and then expounding upon certain facets of our society, and this is one of them, the propensity for violence. So philosophically, we need to decide where we stand, okay? And it's okay to stand in a place that says, you know what? I'm not going to carry a gun. I'm not going to participate in that. I'm going to go down the peace path, and whatever happens, happens. And I actually kind of respect that. If people want to do that, I don't really fault them. I think it should be a conscious decision. It shouldn't be just due to lack of preparation. I don't respect that. So people are like, well, I really want to take care of mine and my own, myself. But, I've been so busy, engaging in, as I call it, my pleasure cycle, traveling, playing games, watching Netflix and all this other bullshit that distracts people from seeing what's really going on in the world and taking some preparations to take care of their family. The first thing I will tell you is you need to know where you stand with that. Because if you get in a situation and without rule of law, it's going to dictate how you behave in that situation. I'm going to tell you also that we live in a modern society. We're used to things being very, very easy. We're used to police being right there when we need it, or if they're not right there, shortly thereafter. We're used to people behaving a certain way. We're used to a predictability in society. When services cease, whether it's the delivery of fuel, any kind of energy supplies, food, clothing, medical services, people's behavior will change. This is just historical. It is. How are you going to deal with that when you find yourself in that situation? I suspect, since you're watching this video, and hopefully you watch all the parts that I produce with the VBOK series, you've determined that you are a man. And as a man, you have a natural God-given right for self-defense, which I totally have talked about many, many times, and I 1000% agree with. No government can take that from you, by the way. As a man who is determined to defend himself, his wife, his children, his friends, his property, you will take the necessary means to do so. I think that's where you fall. That's where I fall. Again, I don't fault people who go, well, I don't ever want to hurt anybody. I think I feel that way too. So do you. We just want to be left alone and be able to travel in this particular scenario that I'm building here. We want to go to our destination, which leads us, by the way, to the objective of your kit build. This is one thing that I do. I don't know if other channels do it. I don't watch other channels, at least in this genre. But I set an objective with every kit build. What are you trying to do? Because it will dictate how you're going to allocate your limited resources of SAWC. Our objective, says Nutnfancy, for our VBOK is simply to get to our destination. It's simple. We just want to get where we were going. Now, at face value, you look at this and you go, well, of course, that's our objective. I mean, duh. But let me expound on a couple things that will creep up on you if you don't keep this objective in mind. And by the way, for simplicity reasons, when I talk about my VBOK, I'm going to deal simply with an urban situation and a rural situation. And they are very different in their applications. I would like to thank my donors in the Patreon environment. You should be one. Sign up. $5 a video if you can do it. $2 if you can't. I asked those guys, I said, hey, help me out. And I'd never done this before. I was like, there's so many good comments beneath my videos. I thought I would kind of preface this video with soliciting their input. And I got a lot of good feedback. I said, hey, I'm going to do a VBOK series. What do you guys think? And I asked them some questions. And I did find out, this is one thing they helped clarify my thinking, because some of the TNPrs that answered said, hey, I'm in an urban situation. The distance that I normally would have to travel is not lengthy. There's another TNP who answered, actually, I'm on the road, I'm a trucker. My distances are undefined. It could be lengthy. Others answered, like in my particular situation, I said, I'm in a rural situation, and so I may have a very long ways to go, maybe over 100 miles. What's our objective? To get where we are going. So let's go back to my situation, and let's say we want to have something concrete that we can wrap our heads around. Let's say there was an earthquake, and it was a huge earthquake. I mean, I don't know, 8.5, 9, and it broke up the roadway. Even in your four-wheel drive, jacked up, you're not going anywhere. You're crevasses. In my vehicle BOK assumption, your vehicle, for whatever reason, ain't going nowhere. Okay? Now I'm going to talk about some other things, but just bear with me for a sec. You've determined that you can't use your vehicle to get to your destination. Either the roads aren't working, either there's civil unrest, there's people shooting, there's widespread rioting, there's blockages of interstate, and they have weapons, kind of like Pro-Tifa did. I call them Pro-Tifa because they're pro-fascists, BLMites, all those morons, violent morons, by the way. And you go, I don't know if I can, drive through a hail of bullets and make it. Okay, so you're back on the roadway and you go, okay, I'm not going to be able to use my vehicle. But around you, there's going to be a weird situation, because where I was, there are a lot of people. Because if you haven't been to Utah lately, let me explain something. The roads in those two valleys in the urban areas of Utah are packed. They're as bad as Phoenix, bad as LA, bad as San Francisco. They're horrible. Heavy traffic, all times of day, pretty much most roadways, which means if that suddenly the music stops, it's kind of like musical chairs. Everyone's dancing around, having fun. As soon as the music stops, everyone's locked in position. Excuse me. So you're going to have a fair amount of people around you. And I told you that when a without rule of law situation happens, and it's not in just this scenario, it's going to be in society overall, people's behavior is going to be unpredictable, and it's going to be alarming and hard to watch. In some situations, let me say this, there will be some people, I think most people will handle it quite well. They'll just go, oh, well, you know, this won't last that long. Some of them may be sane, and a lot of who-ons will be saying, I'll just wait till someone rescues me. And I tell them, there ain't nobody coming. They're busy dealing with downtown Salt Lake. They're busy dealing with all the injured people, people dying, fires breaking out, natural gas explosions. You think they're going to come down and rescue us? I don't know, 150 miles to the south? 150 miles to the north? Probably not. Which drives to you and I, our philosophy is we are not counting on someone to rescue us. We're going to take care of business ourselves. Because that we control. We can control that. We can't control if EMS is going to be working. We don't know. We don't know. Or any services are going to be working. So what you have then in our situation is you have an instant community, whether they like it or not. You have people around you, and some will be freaking out. Let's say initially, you know, the earthquake happens, people are like, oh my gosh, and then they scout the road up ahead and they go, oh, there's a huge crevasse up there, there's no way we're getting through it. Someone goes to the other side of the road and says, yeah, same thing, we're kind of locked here. People are going to be looking for leadership. Go back to your objective. What's your objective? Told you this would creep up on you. You're going to like this discussion. Your objective is to get where you're going. Your objective is not necessarily to be the leader of an instant community. Okay? Do you see where it can get mixed up? Because you're going to have to make some hard choices. There may be people that you want to help, and you won't have the resources to help them. You won't have medical resources. You won't have food. You won't have water resources. You have very, very limited resources in your vehicle. And I don't really care what kind of vehicle it is. It's going to be limited. So you can't be Superman. You can't be all things to all people. And I'm just saying you're alone. What if you have your kids with you? What if you have your wife with you? So sorry. Do you see how the situation can be so complex? You may have people who are injured in that group that's around you on the roadway. Are you going to use your medical supplies on them? Again, you have, if you're lucky, a level 2 FAC, probably like I plan on having, a level 1 plus, which isn't a lot. I don't have a lot of gauze. I don't have a lot of tape. I'm not a damn paramedic coming out of a helicopter with instant resupply. Now, it doesn't mean we can't offer assistance. We should be of service. And there could be ways that we could help other people. We could send them on directions. We could maybe organize them into groups and send them away from us. Because if you decide to be a leader, and if they find out that you are a man, a masculine man who has prepared things, for instance, you throw on a backpack, they're going to look to you for leadership. They're like, this guy knows what the hell he's doing. I'm following him. I don't want them to follow me. I'm going back to my objective. What's my objective? To get where I'm going. It's not to bring a clan of 70 people with me when I get there. Do you see how complex this gets very quickly? And yet some people will just sucker cup onto you. They'll wrap their tentacles around you because they're frightened. They want someone that looks like they know what they're doing, and they want to, you know, be part of you, be part of your clan, and I don't blame them. Look for ways to offer assistance however you can. But it may be a situation where you have to slip away unnoticed. Do you see what I'm saying? And there's ways to do that. Look for ways to escape and just try to slip away unnoticed, because if you don't, you're going to have perhaps, and again, I don't know for certain, but I suspect you're going to have a group that wants to travel with you. And you don't have the resources for that. Nor, and I'm talking about me, I don't want to be responsible for their physical well-being and their emotional well-being either. Because I'll have people breaking down the group, and then I have to try to shore them up, stay with it, come on, we can get through this. Then someone twists their ankle, and now they have to be carried. Now I have to make, a stretcher system. Now I have to get stretcher bearers. Oh my gosh, that guy's got a broken leg. Oh, she forgot her medicine. It just gets super complicated. So think about that. Do you want to wrap yourself around the situation? And let me go back a little bit too about the vehicle. So in my situation, the earthquake destroyed the roads. There's a lot of other situations where the road system will be like musical chairs. For whatever reason, it shuts down. I did allude to some of them already. Okay, so some of you guys will say, well, I would just find a way to drive to where I'm going. And to that, I would say, do it if you can. If you can stay with your vehicle, stay with your vehicle. Your vehicle is like a home to you. It's a base of operations. It costs you a lot of money to have. You don't necessarily want to just throw the vehicle away and go traipsing off to wherever you're going and not knowing what's going to happen to it. I get that. Also, you need to really understand if the situation you're in is long-term or short-term. And you should be chill enough to wait it out. In other words, don't be spring-loaded to throw the pack on and start traipsing to your location. Relax. Just breathe, drink some water, stay in the vehicle, and get information. Okay, what's going on from any source you can? Are the radios working? Do I have a shortwave radio that I could use? Could I pull in information from that? Are there any other travelers that came from the opposite direction that can give me information? You need to have a clear picture of what your situation is before you make a very big decision. And that big decision is leaving your vehicle and going on foot to get your objective fulfilled. And your objective is what? That's right, to get to our destination. That's all we're trying to do. So relax, bring in information. Is it long-term or short-term? Now you might be wondering, to me, what is long-term or what is short-term? I would say, and this is all subjective. Here in the warehouse, it's easy for me to say this, but in certain situations, depending on, I hear gunshots, there's groups of people coming down that are, robbing everybody, that are trapped because they're taking advantage of the situation. It would change my decision. But for me, I think short-term could be a couple days. I would be willing to stay with my vehicle a couple days to see if things improve. But if my intelligence network shows me that I'm stuck, then I need to make some hard decisions. Now, one thing I always want you guys to do is understand how disposable all possessions are. Now, it may seem odd coming from me, and I have spoke to this a couple times in reviews, maybe some philosophy videos, but everything you have, whether it's clothing, guns, knives, here's an SAR9, great little pistol, by the way. Watch for its review. Awesome. Whatever it is. Shotgun, Smith & Wesson M&P12. All of it's disposable. Its objective is to protect you in this particular situation. Your car was designed to carry you from point A to point B. It's disposable. If you want to stay alive, you need to understand that. When I went through the Air Force, I flew ejection seat aircraft. And the Air Force was really good in the day about teaching their pilots about the disposability of the aircraft, which is amazing actually, because some of them cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. And yet, To this day, as far as I know, the Air Force teaches an ejection seat equipped pilot, when things go south, we're going to have you go through a thought process very quickly whether you can rescue that aircraft. We're going to give you parameters like floors of altitude. If you hit this certain altitude and the aircraft is still out of control, you eject. You give it back, as we say, to the taxpayers. You're out. We can get a new plane. You took a lot of money to train. We want the pilot to live. That stuck with me, and it's a very accurate way to look at everything we own. Everything we own is disposable. You shouldn't really care. Well, you care, but the objective is for you to stay alive, for your family to stay alive. So if it destroys in the process and it was no fault of your own, blow it off. For instance, in our situation with your vehicle, there may come a decision, you go, you know what? This car is gone. I'm giving it up. I don't know what's going to happen to it, and I don't really care. This truck I have is awesome. I spent a lot of money on it. Whatever. And maybe it's damaged. Maybe your vehicle's damaged through the process. For whatever reason, it was damaged. And so we go on foot. That's the bottom line for a VBOK, because that is worst situation. That's the worst case, that we cannot use a vehicle. At least our four-wheel conveyance, we go on foot. Now, some of my dudes in the poll that I put out in Patreon, they were really interesting, actually, smart guys. They said, well, in my vehicle, I'll probably put a fold-up bicycle. And I like that line of thinking, but here's the deal. For that bicycle, you're probably going to have to drive it between cars where people are. And remember, these people are desperate. What do you think they're going to say and do when they see a dude riding on a bicycle? They might just decide to take it from you. Some might decide to shoot you to get your bicycle, kind of like that Tom Cruise movie, War of the Worlds. I thought that was a pretty interesting representation when people get desperate, what they do. Remember, they took his van that he had and he gave it up, and then they started shooting each other, violently trying to take it from one another. It might be like that. My approach would be to get away from people quickly in that situation. For all the reasons I've discussed, I want to get away from people, and I want to get out on my own with my group. I might be with a group. I might be with Mrs. Nutnfancy. I might be with some friends like Sean the TNPr. I might be with my sons. I might be with maybe a trusted traveler that I find out this guy who was near me is a solid dude. He thinks like I do. Maybe we do team up. We become a team. So I'm not totally against that. I just don't want a clan traveling with me. And again, this is when rescue is not imminent. So you're going to have to make that decision. And you might say, I need to get away from people quickly. And I'm not sure that any wheeled conveyance in that situation, depending on where you are really, would work. What I'm thinking of is my rural situation I gave you, and in that there's barbed wire fence, there's no other roads except the one you're on. For you guys in an urban situation, to be fair, I think a bicycle might be more doable because you do have a lot more paved surfaces to use. Let me represent that. You're going to have to decide, but you can run into people everywhere. And in that situation, if there's so many paved surfaces to use, you know, why couldn't you use your car, your truck? Don't try to save your vehicle, though, if it means losing your life. That's a point I want to make. Now, in this situation that we're talking about, where a mass of people finds themselves together, stranded on a roadway, they can't progress, at least in their vehicles, you might again see violence break out. I mean, I mentioned the road rage thing, and that's in rule of law. And without rule of law, you could have conflicts erupt very quickly, and they could go very violent very quickly, because that's kind of where we are as a society. It's like the love of man has already waxed cold. Throw in, without rule of law situation, desperation, no emergency services, and then watch what happens. What's our objective, though? What's our objective? to get to our destination, Nutnfancy. Right. Our objective is not to engage in any conflict. In fact, just the opposite. We want to go the other way. Now, if there's a huge injustice going on, we see a dude doing this or that, maybe raping a woman, you'll have some more hard choices to make. But that, we could stay here all night talking about what ifs. But in the overall arching philosophy of a VBOK, I'm keeping you laser beam focused. You're going to get to your destination. You're not going to be Superman. You're not going to engage in vengeance, punishing, fighting, fist fighting. Definitely not physical combat, because you can get injured. And that could very much change your ability to even go where you want to go. So if you get in some fist fight, down on the ground, guy punches you, you get a leg injury, knee injury, now what are you going to do? This also is not a recreational camping outing. We're not out there to camp and have a good time. We're trying to get to our destination. I know you guys like this discussion, but I have to keep you focused, because some guys get, I don't know, they try to do too much with their kit. We're not trying to do too much. We're trying to be focused. Okay, I have 8 things I want to rip through. This is going to be long enough video. I need to get going. Okay, number 1, I talked about this already, and it is don't bug out if you don't have to. It's just like the Bugout kit. You remember what I said about that? Bug in. That's right, you bug in. You don't leave your house. You don't leave your warehouse. You got everything you need at your location. Why in the heck would you just leave that? And I think until my Bugout kit videos came along, there was this discussion online about, yeah, I'm going to bug out. I got this place. I got this slice of property. I'm going to go up in the hills. And I debunked that big time. I'm like, you think you're going to be the only one there? You're going to find a whole bunch of people have that same property in mind, if it's not your property in legal deed. And they'll be armed too. You're going to have some combat going on up there. Stay where you're at. So we talked about short versus long, the decision to leave the vehicle and just make it a write-off, okay? That one's done. 2, I talked about, I already started talking about this, when to abandon your vehicle. Now, again, your definition of short-term and long-term might be different than mine. Your location might be different. You may have more emergency services. We're just assuming worst case, where no one's coming. There's no, knight in shining armor coming to rescue us. And that's, I think, one thing that modern people just really do not have in their minds. They don't understand this, because life has been so easy for so long. We have some very hard lessons coming to us as a nation because of the idiocy of nuance, to be honest. We are going to reap the rewards of really bad decisions from our political leaders. We're along for the ride. You and I are along for the ride. Part of this is suffering. I'm talking like economic collapse, depression level suffering. Eyes are going to get opened in the future. I'm not trying to be a doom and gloomer. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. I'm a very positive person watching my videos. But you don't want to be caught off guard. Okay, when people are caught off guard, they lose their stuff. They freak. Some people go into shock and they cannot function. Especially a modern person that's not used to hiking, not used to having very little to eat, having very little to drink. They lose their shit. Sorry. Okay, the third tenet I want to talk about, which is foundational to our build, I mentioned it. You are going to travel on foot. Now, I know some of you guys might be on the heavier side. I've struggled with that at times in my life too. I feel you. You need to lose weight, if at all possible. Some of you may have existing injuries where you cannot hike long distances. That you have less control over. You may be in a situation where you are more apt to redefine what short-term means to you. In other words, let's say I have one leg. I don't have another leg. I can't really hike a long distance. Maybe you have a prosthetic and maybe you have that capability. Or whatever it is. And only you can determine that. If you are in control of your ability to be mobile and you have an ability to improve it, I would not even start building a VBOK without improving it, because you're kidding yourself. At least if you accept my tenet that you are going to be on foot. If you say, well, my bug out kit for my vehicle is just for my vehicle, no matter what, I'm staying with my vehicle, okay, that's different. That's a different approach than I'm doing right here. But you're not going to get to your destination. You're going to be stuck until either one of a couple things happens. The roadway opens up some way, or someone comes to rescue you. You need to be in shape. I need to be in shape to be able to walk long distances. Now, as I say this, I've had major knee issues after all my hiking I did this summer. I'm on a brace right now. So I'm telling you, I'm sympathetic with mobility issues. I got an x-ray, my margins in my right knee are not great. Functioning, yes, but how long before I'm bone on bone? I don't know. I've had 4 surgeries on the right knee. We all have issues. But you're going to have to press through. You're going to have a mental ability to press through. And this is another part of this. Something that you may or may not have already. You have to have a laser beam focus on your objective. That come hell or high water, no matter how far and hard the journey may be, you are going to win. You're going to get to your destination. Are you feeling me on this? Okay? It's that focus to win, to say, I will press through all the uncomfortableness, the threats to my life, whatever it is, the weather, the snow, the mud, the cold feet. I'm going to get to where I'm going. That's how determined you have to be. And that will translate to your body. Because if you have a will to survive, you'll find that your body has a will to deliver. If you give up, which I think most modern people will, the body's going to say, well, mentally you've given up. I'm not going to deliver anything to you. But there are millions of stories, millions of examples of people who physically they didn't look like much. But when placed in dire circumstances, when the chips were down, because they were so focused, so determined, and so positive in their outlook, they survived. Some of them getting out of the most unlikely, harsh conditions imaginable. I've given examples of this in the past videos. That's the way I want you to be. I want you to be focused. I want you to be super positive. I'm going to do it. I can do this. I can overcome. I'm going to get to my destination. I'm going to take my family with me. I'm going to protect them. Are we going to be hungry? Probably. Are we going to be uncomfortable? Probably. But we're going to do it. If you haven't done long distance foot travel, now would be a good time to practice. Excuse me. I've always said in TNP that you should at least go on a hike a couple times a year, right? A couple times a year, go hiking, right? And that way you are used to this. You've seen I've modeled this a lot in TNP, that your body is designed to survive. Okay, again, if you have that mental capacity and that mental focus and determination. But you need to practice. If you've never hiked, let's say, I'm going to give you a ridiculous distance, get ready. Let's say in our situation, for me to get where I'm going, I need to hike 100 miles. Have you ever done that before? Okay, I see a few hands who were scouts in the day. Okay. You know how difficult it is. It is extremely difficult, but you can do it. People all over the world have done this. Our objective is to get where we are going. It's going to be foot travel. We'll be subjected to the weather, whatever's going on in the weather at that time. Practice. If you can lose weight, get in shape. I say this for everything. So any guy who's tactical, who's thinking about LBE, being active, MCW, you need to be in shape as best as your body, as best as your situation will allow. At least walk frequently. Get your heart rate up. It is the foundation for everything you do. BOK is no different. I talked about this in BOK. You're going to be on foot there too. Okay, so consistent. Number 4. I keep jumping ahead. I don't even look at my notes. These are my notes, by the way. They're lame. Totally lame. I talked about distance. It might be longer than 100 miles. It just depends. But maybe you have a halfway house or friend's house you could go to. And you urban, I'm sorry, I've been so focused on the rural situation because it seems to me in a lot of ways to be more difficult. But let's go back to the urban situation. It might be a lot shorter for you guys. But your challenges will be different. Your challenges will be people. Your challenges will be urban unrest. And if you look at the riots of 2020 by the Pro-Tifa-ites and all that, that's a good glimmer of what is coming. Things on fire, people shouting, people with guns. I mean, just mass confusion. Plan on worst case. What's our objective? Not to get even, not to be Superman, not to engage in combat. Our objective is to get the hell where we're going. That's it. So to do this, we need to be smart. And I want to talk about that too. Here in the next one I'll talk about, but not quite yet. But the distance for you guys may be shorter, but your threats, at least from the human variety, could be much higher. Your kits, by the way, should be tailored to that. Okay, so maybe you're not going 100 miles. Maybe on the outside of it, you're going 20 miles to get back to your place. But maybe you will have people who, heaven forbid, are setting up roadblocks and they're not going to let you pass, and they are armed, and maybe you, to prepare for this eventuality, have to bring more ammunition. Maybe body armor. What's your objective? To get where I'm going, right? But you said don't fight if you don't have to. Well, to get to your objective, you might have to fight. Okay? So maybe plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D is all closed, and so I'm going to go to plan, this way over here if I'm in an urban environment, and because of my intelligence network, I gathered information. I know that's the least risk for me and my family to go that way, but we're still going to encounter some people who are armed. We'll probably try to, rob us. This is all worst case. You need to be prepared. Sorry. You need to be prepared. Number 5. This will go to what I was alluding to. Objective is to get where we're going, not to fight, not to punish, not to seek revenge. We just want to get where we're going. We really want to be left alone. That is what I want you to really understand about this philosophical VBOK discussion. And actually in life, just leave us alone. You guys do your own situation. I'm sorry, I wish the best for you. I really do. But I have my own things I'm trying to deal with. And I'm just trying to get my family to where they need to go. So in order to do that, we're going to be smart. In order to be smart, we need to be kind of as they call it, the gray man. In other words, you're trying to blend in to wherever you are. In the urban situation, you're trying to blend into whatever the locals look like. You don't necessarily want to wear camouflage like I'm wearing today. You don't want to look tactical. You don't want to have an AR-15 out that is readily available unless you need it readily available. You don't want to look like a soldier because someone far off could see you and you don't see them, and they could just snipe you at 200 yards and kill you and take all your stuff. You want to blend. Now, in my situation, the rural situation in the desert mountains or in the high mountains of Utah, Wyoming, this would actually make good sense because I do want to be camouflaged. Oh, dang, my mic fell down. Sorry about that, dudes. I hope you can hear me. I do want to be camouflaged. I don't want to be seen. So camouflage in that situation would make a good plan. Oh, break time. So camouflage in that situation would make sense. Now, I wouldn't necessarily be wearing it when I drive the vehicle, but maybe in my VBOK, I do have a camouflage clothing option. Okay, That's an insight to how I will do my build. Now, does it make sense for your situation? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I will also have a way to blend in with standard people. So standard street clothes, I don't look any different from anybody else. Have a way to conceal my weapons, and I'm just gray man. I'm low vis. I don't want to be seen. Again, I'm telling you, you should get away from people, right? And just bug out and get away from folks. So blending into terrain, blending into your environment so you can travel, this is very important, peacefully. So if I give you two options, you can travel with high probability of violence or travel with no probability of violence. You as a preparedness-minded individual, which one are you going to choose? Right, you're going to choose, oh, hold on, I'm pointing to violence. The path of least resistance, I think is that one. That's what I'm going to do. I don't want to have to use my guns. They're last ditch options. I don't want to have to use them at all. That's what I'm talking about. So avoid, de-escalate, negotiate if at all possible. And this is very important. It's going to be its own talking point. Keep moving. Don't bog down. What's our objective? Right, to get where we are going. We're not going to get where we're going if we start bogging down. If we start making a community at this one place. If that's what you're doing, your objective isn't to get where you're going. Your objective is to, well, make a micro community, which may or may not be a bad idea. I don't know. My objective is to get where I am going, get where you are going, especially if you're trying to go to your bug out location. Why in the heck would you not want to reach that? But you got to keep moving. That being said, travel if you can at night. Okay, when I went through survival training, evasion training, SERE training, if you will, in the Air Force, they're big about you traveling at night. Now, granted, there's thermal devices, there's night vision devices, but I think in our situation, at least in a rural situation, I think they're going to be few and far between. In an urban situation, to be honest, I also think they're going to be few and far between. They take preparation, high amounts of money to prepare, and batteries being charged, and that may or may not be the case. I think the propensity for you to be seen in daytime is much greater than you being seen at nighttime when you are traveling and keeping moving. Okay, I think nighttime could be your friend. That being said, how many of you have practiced walking long distances at night with no flashlight on? I have, many times. My dad trained me when I was a kid. He trained me by moonlight. He's like, you don't need a flashlight. Just let your night vision adapt. And sure as heck, he was right. He's like, don't look directly at the object. Look a little bit to the side of it, and because you have a blind spot right in the middle for night vision. Sure as heck, he was right. No big deal. Travel at night. And then maybe in the day, you kind of just hole up. You camouflage, you hide. You're in a place where no one can see. You will need to rest. This is a long distance. Perhaps you are going. Chill. Just relax, and then as evening comes, start traveling again. Now, this is assuming that you can be seen, that there are hostile operators around you. Maybe that's not the situation. Maybe very quickly you become alone, or you find solitude with your group. If that's a situation, I wouldn't say traveling at night is like the only way you can travel. Just be smart. Can we be seen? Is it a threat if we are seen? Will people try to steal what we have? Will they try to attack us? You know, just kind of go back in the history of man. And if the answer is yes, travel at night. But I will be looking around. You need to be super alert as you travel. Again, I'm going to get away from people. I'm going to plot a course, which by the way means you might want to have a map with you. Don't rely on electronic devices if you don't know where you are. Because you want to know where you are, how to read a map, a compass, stay on the paths less traveled, and maybe that means you have to be even in better shape because it may be taking you into the mountains. At least in Utah and Wyoming, it is that way. Again, I'm painting a worse situation. The best situation is everyone's peaceful, So let's say I-15 shuts down. Everyone's peaceful. Everyone's getting along. No one's losing their stuff. You know, no one's creating violence. People just start walking on the interstate and just helping one another. That would be ideal, actually. I would like that, and that could be a player too. I'm painting the worst situation because that's what your kit build should address. You shouldn't address a situation that may or may not, come to fruition. You want to know that you can, your preparations are enough to get you through in worst situation from what you can see. We can't plan for every eventuality. We just do the best we can. So we talked about blending in, and I did mention this early too. This is a point, but I hit it already. Don't do group travel if you can get away with it or get away from it. Group travel is bad. Much more noticeable. You can't move quickly. You're dealing with group politics, group attitudes, which may or may not be in line with what you're trying to do, and that is to get to your destination. You may find that there may be some inner plots going on in your group that they say, hey, when he's asleep, we're going to take all his shit and we're going to bug out and just leave him with nothing. That could happen. It has happened. If you don't have to have a group dynamic in a vehicular bug out situation, I would avoid it. Now, as you travel, there's another, we're almost done, by the way. This is another one, about an hour long. That's not too bad. And I hope you guys could hear me with the mic. I'm probably just going to leave it. There's nothing I can do. Sorry. I'm not going to redo it. As you travel, you may see, and again, this is worst situation. You may see situations of groups of people attacking other groups of people. You may see some injustice happening that you go, what was that one movie? It was like one of the Clint Eastwood Westerns where he's seeing a wagon train getting attacked and he decides to go intervene. You may have another hard decision to make. Are you going to travel and get where you're going, or are you going to intervene? With your very limited resources, by the way, that could happen. My overarching advice to you folks, you good friends of mine in the project, is to avoid skirmishes. Avoid gunfights at all costs. Well, not at all costs, but wherever possible. You're not a soldier. You're not a Navy SEAL. You're not an operator. You are just some weakling with very limited physical capacity and very limited resources trying to get home. If you decide to burn those resources, either your physical capacity, your health, or the stuff you have, you may not meet your objective. Let that sink in. I'm just keeping it real. Okay? You're trying to get home. Now, once you're home, and maybe you have another vehicle, you have another way to go rescue people, you have other people that can assist, maybe you can, arrange a rescue party. But you may see some things happening that you feel obligated to involve yourself in. I would do that under, I would say I would do that after careful thought. Think through it carefully before you do that. Okay? And we're done, boys. I think that's it. That side has nothing. Vehicular bug out kit. We'll just call it vehicle bug out kit. That's the way I see things now. Life experiences, societal changes could change some of my tenets as I see it now, or my foundational principles as I've been discussing with a VBOK. But I think it's grounded. I think it's realistic. And I think it's limited in scope where we can build a kit to achieve that objective. That's all we're trying to do. Now, with a vehicle, I'm going to throw this in here. We do not have unlimited SAWC. I haven't looked on the internet, I haven't looked in YouTube to see what guys are saying about this topic because I honestly don't care. I have a fresh take. I don't want to know what they're saying about it. Not that I don't respect their opinion. I would. I do. I just like doing my own thing. But I would suspect that there's someone saying that you should have this, you should have that, you should have this, and they load you up with this ridiculous amount of stuff that you're supposed to have in your vehicle every time you travel. We are very SAWC limited in most of our cars and even trucks. So sometimes when I'm traveling, I'm going to Wyoming, I'm carrying a bunch of ammunition, a bunch of guns for TNP testing. I have to use all my cubic inches, all my cubic feet to do the TNP job. So if someone says, well, now you need a 21-speed bike, you need to bolt onto the damn car, you need a huge backpack, you need a huge tent. Ideally, a lot of that stuff would be cool, I'm not gonna lie. But do I have the room? Do I really want to be carrying around the weight for miles per gallon fuel efficiency? Let's get real. So we don't have unlimited space. We do not have, honestly, we don't have unlimited funding, because just like our other kit builds, we're going to build the VBOK and it will be dedicated forever for vehicular use. It's not to be pirated for any other reasons. You're not going to grab it for camping or hiking. It's VBOK, just like DSK, just like BOK. Those are sacrificed for those POUs specifically. Excuse me. Raise your hand if to this day you have built your BOK and you have not pirated it and you haven't stolen anything out of it. Round of applause to you, because that means you get it. That's exactly what you do. We're going to build our VBOK. It will be dedicated to maybe just one vehicle, but it's okay to transfer it from one vehicle to the next vehicle. That's a-okay. We're just not taking it in the house. It's always going to be in the vehicle. I shouldn't say always, but with high probability it's going to be with us. There might be a time when you're doing errands in town, very short. I'm not sure if a vehicle BOK is always necessary. You have to decide that. But in most situations, we should probably have it on our person. Okay, in the subsequent videos, what I'm going to do is talk about, I know you guys want a big discussion on this, weapon choice, and it will harken back to everything I've said here. You'll see my weapon of choice may surprise you because of how society has changed, how things are just on edge. Weapon choice, how much ammunition, what kind of food, do you bring food, clothing, emergency supplies, tools, knives, basically other things in our kit items, but we're going to tailor it specifically more for the vehicle. You will see some similarities. I mean, there's going to be a lot of similarities between my VBOK and my DSK, for instance. But again, we don't have unlimited SAWC. There you go. Lieutenant Colonel Nutnfancy, retired, signing off from the chilly warehouse with a cold. So sorry about that. Thanks for subscribing. Think about being a donor, long-term donor. We do have a thing now in Patreon where you can join for free. That's called charter membership. I do release like 2 videos to those free Patreon members per month, but really the guys who are paying the bills make TNP work. So consider being one of them. You can just do $5 a month. That's all you can do. You can figure out what that is when you join up. It'll show you how to do that. I don't have any tier levels, so I don't like have first tier, second tier, you know, third tier, $100 a month. I don't do any of that. I'm an idiot. But thanks to those guys, I'm still trucking along. Stay tuned. I'll get to those other parts as soon as I can. I think it will be engaging and very fun, and hopefully you'll never need it. See ya.